go up in flames in the fire that destroyed most of the exhibition centre. Not far from the present Selhurst railway station, a temporary home was found for Crystal Palace Mark II. Indeed, it was while their home was the Nest, as it was known, Palace were admitted to the Football League, and they became the first champions of the third division. Some argue the high spot of their history until this season. Their permanent home since 1924, Selhurst Park, had to wait 45 years to see First Division football. When it came, their first opponents were who else but Manchester United.
There's George Best, with the hair blending into the shirt. And on the front of that hair, we find he's growing just a little bit of a beard. Either that or he didn't have time for a shave this morning. Brim has come for it. Oh, he was never really there. And Sadler tries to clear it, and Hine gets the touch. This is Sadler. Morgan. Hine with him. Kidd and Law together. Charlton coming in. And the goal for Bobby Charlton. Cliff Jackson. Good running by Queen. Doing well to control it. And a goal by Jerry Queen. That's a nasty one. Oh, Jackson. Morgan. And a goal. Willie Morgan.
Kidd to Best. Ooh, the ball bouncing, wobbling very badly over on that far side. Kidd, it's there! Oh, got this thing by Muir, and it's Jackson! And a penalty! Manchester United can conceivably have thrown away this ridiculous point now. A mistake by Muir sends Cliff Jackson away, and Stepney has to bring him down. Just 15 minutes left. Soule takes the penalty for Crystal Palace. And, well, good gracious me. And it's a goal. It's a goal now. Nobody moved to help Stepney, and Soule has put it in.
Manchester United's popularity is reflected in the fact that the average home attendance at Old Trafford of almost 39,000 is again the highest in the league, 2,000 more per game than Liverpool. Their supporters club has 90 branches, many of them overseas, and hundreds of these fans will have travelled on the overnight ferries from Ireland. Almost 1,000 staff are required to run Old Trafford on a match day. Only 100 of those are policemen. The club wage bill is £2 million a year, and programme sales are 40,000 a match. It's a sign that times are changing. While the average fan makes his way to the terracing, the modern corporate spectators are being catered for in 95 private boxes, each with an eagle's eye view of the pitch and waitress service for all their needs. Manchester United is an industry.
What scale is the club on now?
Well, it's on a massive scale in professional football terms. Even in the period I've been here, 25 years, the staff must have increased, 100%, 200%. We have so many other facilities other than now just putting the match on a Saturday. The box and executive accommodation has grown tremendously. The sponsorship, commercialisations, shops. I mean, now it's a 7-day business.
A cruel joke emanating, no doubt, from Merseyside has been that the only thing you could be certain of getting at Old Trafford in recent seasons has been a good meal. More than 800 of them are cooked on match days for the private boxes, plus 7 restaurants and executive suites. They turn over, in food alone, £1 million a year. The club's souvenir shop is the size of a small supermarket, and security guards have to filter the customers on match days. There are £50 jackets, 50p key rings. 100 postal inquiries come every day from places like the Soviet Union and the United States. 18 staff are required on the busiest days, and it all helps to generate Manchester United's burgeoning wealth.
Facts and figures. Figures, I can't tell you. We'll make a lot of money here. Facts, it must be the finest souvenir shop in the country, if not the world. On a match day, we roughly have about 10,000 people coming through here.
And how many individual items have you got on sale?
Individual, roughly about 600 individual items.
And what's the most popular?
The scarf.
Still?
Yeah, still, yeah. £3.50, £2. We sell items ranging from 50p to £50.
How's the sales going in the souvenir shop, Danny?
Oh, very well at the moment. As you can imagine, it's cup final day and it's going very well.
How big is this club?
Well, I think it's the biggest and I think it's the best. I've been in different sort of industries, but I've come here as a supporter and I've been in now for 5 years, and even though it's big, it never loses its warmth. It's still homely and friendly. It's the legend, really, isn't it? Everybody knows Manchester United. You go on holidays, but Manchester United, Bobby Charlton, it seems to rhyme together. And if you come on the match stage, there's as many people outside here at 11 o'clock as what there is at most grounds at 2:45. And I think if we could only win the championship, the people would be sitting on the roof to get in here.
Without being in any way disrespectful to Crystal Palace, put the two clubs into perspective for us, the one against the other.
It's a difficult question, really. I think everybody's got a product to sell, whether it be Manchester United, whether it be Crystal Palace, or whether it be Scunthorpe. You've just got to cut your cloth accordingly to your product. That's the way I feel it. And I think if I was at Crystal Palace, they've got through to the final, the commercial manager must be clapping his hands, as I am, because it's made my season, and I'm sure it's made his.
Crystal Palace won't be found wanting for support at Wembley despite their miserly ticket allocation. Ask Liverpool, who encountered the passion Palace have traditionally aroused amongst their followers during that memorable FA Cup semi-final. Palace is a club that in its last stay in the First Division averaged crowds of 30,000 plus. Still, the reaction to today's Wembley visit inside the Selhurst Park club shop has surpassed all expectations.
Everything's up by 50%, and it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're overwhelmed with everything.
The staff been run off their feet.
Oh, they all want to give their notice in. They work so hard, but they've been marvellous for them. Really
but they
good.
enjoy it.
Yes, they do. They're Palace through and through, and it's a fillip for them all.
And supporting Palace takes other forms too. Palace won't be without ecclesiastical support at Wembley. The Red Devils are being exorcised. The Reverend Nigel Sands, ironically once a curate in Liverpool, now doubles as a Berkshire vicar and Crystal Palace historian. His flock know his tendencies.
And so tomorrow, when you're watching the cup final, and you see Palace's Phil Barber racing down that wing with every nerve and sinew stretched to reach the ball, or you see Mark Bright going up for a header against the United defence, or you see our England B international goalkeeper stretching as far as he can to just fingertip the save round the post. That's the sort of thing that St Paul is talking about. Giving everything you've got in order to score the goal at football, but also to make sure that we reach the goal in our Christian lives. Because what a pity it would be if we missed it.
Meanwhile, who said Palace's support wasn't far-flung?
Well, I think when I first came down here, what really impressed me about the club was the supporters and the kind of support they have here. The fact that it's a good mix. There's a lot of women come down to watch football here. A lot of children come down. And there's a very good family, friendly spirit at Palace.
And they seem to be passionate. I mean, the hardcore of supporters are really passionate.
Sure. I mean, if you saw us up at Villa Park, you would have seen just how passionate they can be with the red and blue balloons and the singing. Even during that notorious 9-0 defeat up at Anfield, the fans didn't stop singing. I don't think our fans can be beaten by any other club in the land. I sometimes think the media don't give us the respect I think we are due. We are often likened to smaller clubs, where in fact I do honestly believe that we will be a football dynasty in London in the very near future.
And then there's the Manchester-based Supporters Club.
Well, Palace is a friendly club, and us Manchester City fans are known as being brilliant sportsmen, and we've got a nice affinity with Crystal Palace, and I hope they win the cup, purely because I like Crystal Palace as a club, and if they could manage to win by 5 or 6 clear goals, I will cheer every one of those goals. Purely from a sporting point of view, you understand.
Crystal Palace may not be the worldwide multi-million-pound business that Manchester United is. It's still a club that this season could afford Britain's most expensive goalkeeper. Over the past decade, Palace have unashamedly seen making money off the pitch as a prerequisite of success on it. The 1980s began with a supermarket being built on land previously owned by the football club. The 1990s started with the chairman's office located over Selhurst Park's own fish restaurant. In between times, a debt of almost £2 million has been turned round.
You have to be viable, you have to be breaking even. If you're not breaking even, and so therefore you're losing money, all you do all the time is sell your best players to the bigger clubs, and you never build anything. So the first objective of any football club with any ambition is to break even. The second objective is then to create some surplus to invest in the quality of its team. And after that, your results should improve if you've got good management. So you can't do anything without the commercial side at all. You cannot rely on Gates. I mean, the supporter that tells you that he comes every week and therefore pays the wages of the players, he's in a dream world. He really doesn't understand. I think our Gates was something like 1/3 of our income the last time I looked, about a year ago. That's the extent of it. We've had to do the off-pitch activities just to get the club to grow and to be able to compete.
And behind the scenes on match days, Selhurst Park houses 7 separate hospitality lounges. Profits from catering now top £100,000 a year. There are 27 executive boxes as well, and more on the way. Outside, there's further evidence of a mightily ambitious football club. This summer we'll see new dressing rooms, a new main entrance, and still more entertainment facilities.
We made a profit every year since '82. It's usually about 250, but it's now creeping up slowly to 400. Before we reached the cup final, I would have said this year we would do about 800,000 trading profit, and a normal first division year we'd probably do £1 million trading profit. On the other hand, we will invest, certainly in the immediate term, more than that in the long-term future of the club by improving the squad.
Dennis Law running beautifully. Dennis Law there, and the ball is still there. It's free. Dennis Law, and he's scored. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
The glamour clubs like Manchester United have their pick of youngsters who want to be footballers. Over 100 of them enthusiastically kicking a ball around the Cliff training ground each week in United's schools of excellence.
Come off there a bit.
Keeping an eye out for
crowd
the
it,
talent
Paul.
that may win an FA Cup final in the year 2000 are former players like Nobby Stiles and Brian Kidd.
We think it's the biggest and the best, Tony. But there again, it's what we can put on for the kiddies is the main thing, not just the name, because that can only get you so far. I would like to feel with the boss and Archer, Brian Whitehouse, Eric Harrison and Nobby and myself, it's the content to get when they're down here.
But what about the youngsters? Who do they want to play for?
Well, hopefully one day we hope they dream of playing for the Reds.
Can you recognise talent at this age?
Well, I think you can see the kiddies that are blessed with ability, obviously, but you hope they develop and they have a wee bit of luck along the way, Tony.
Anything out there we should be looking at?
Well, I'd like to think all of the kiddies. You know, I can dream, and it'd be lovely if one day they do go out there and play in the first team.
What's that, 8, 9, 7?
Tell us who you are and how old you are, first of all.
My name's Gary Brickell and I am 11.
And why are you here?
Because I play for my area, and Brian, he sometimes watches us and he just chose me.
Who do you want to play for?
United.
Why?
Because I've supported them since I was a little kid.
Oh, that's not fair. I'm too old for that. What's your name?
Nicholas.
Nicholas?
Yeah.
How old are you?
6.
6. Why are you wearing a Manchester United shirt?
But no, just put it on.
What do you want to be?
Don't know.
You want to be a footballer?
Yeah.
Yeah? You sure?
Yeah.
Which club do you want to play for?
Manchester United.
In the 23 years since Manchester United last won the league title, the FA Cup has regularly provided the success that the club needs, like the breath of life.
On by Macari. Smith slips slightly. Jimmy Greenough. And is it gone in by Macari, is it? Albiston to Whiteside. Albiston again, low in for Davis, who've got a good position. Robson! That's the goal that Manchester United wanted from their captain. Here's Whiteside. Strachan is following up. Olsen on this side. That's all he's got. Whiteside shoots. It's there! Norman Whiteside has done it again.
This season too, as the team walked the relegation tightrope, it was the FA Cup final that kept eyes firmly focused on a target ahead.
Phelan. Robbins! Yes!
Like United, Palace too have spent much of the past couple of decades failing to live up to expectations. Though never at Wembley, like United again, they've often lifted their game on the bigger occasions.
Taylor! Oh, what a goal by Peter Taylor!
It was in Malcolm Allison's flamboyant reign, and then under Terry Venables, that Palace were dubbed the team of the 80s. In fact, they were to spend most of that decade outside the First Division.
They were coming on, they were 18, 19, and not quite ready, especially for the First Division. And they needed probably another 2 years developing before they were ready to make the team. And with them getting promotion straight away through the second, through the third, through the first, to the first, they came in and they were good players, as they proved they were good players, but they weren't quite ready to dominate the First Division.
Whatever happened to the Fedora?
Fedora, I promised that if we lost a game with it, I would give it to charity. So I got 55 requests from different charities, and in the end I give it to the Sunshine Homes for handicapped kids, and they raised 1,500 quid for it.
If not quite the team of the 80s then, what about the club of the 90s under Steve Coppell? But the Palace manager remains under no illusions how they compare with a club like Manchester United.
I don't know whether your scale will be big enough. Obviously they're right at the very, very top end. They mightn't have had the domestic silverware to put in the cabinets, but they're still the biggest club. Palace are just beginning to grow. I think we're an acorn in terms of an oak tree. I think that's the best way of putting it.
For Crystal Palace, consolidation in the First Division was this season's target. It was achieved with the same number of points as Manchester United. The FA Cup has been a glorious extra.
Thorne flicked it on, and it's gone in! Pardew! 4-3 Palace!
Well, two very different clubs, but Bob, Jimmy, there might not be that much between them on the pitch here this afternoon. Now, we haven't had the teams confirmed yet, but our hunch is that this is the Crystal Palace side, which is the team that beat Liverpool. And the surprise to, I think, you, is that Ian Wright doesn't start the match.
I can understand Steve Coppell playing the team that won the semi-final. I think it was a great victory for them, and it was that match that earned them the Wembley appearance. I can understand staying with that side for that reason, but being clinical and nasty I would have started with Ian Wright and made the change.
He's got to have a very good reason for it, Des, really, because there's no, if you're a manager at this level, you can't have sentiment about picking a player in there like, say, Solarco. He's got to have a very good reason for not playing Ian Wright. He scored 27 goals last season. He'd scored 11 before he broke his leg this season, and yet he's on the subs bench. And
we ought to confirm that it is unconfirmed yet, but it looks as though he's not going to start the match, and it would appear from that if that's so, that he's not 100% fit then, Bob.
You have to say that. I mean, just for those reasons, because it's a very formidable partnership, is Bright and Wright, and I think it would have quite frightened United. And to me, it's slightly tipping the scales even more towards United.
Give a fright from Bright and Wright.
Right, it's the United lineup as we expect anyway, and that is the team that played in the replay against Oldham, and Robbins and Blackmore the subs, and Jimmy, I know you're a Mark Robbins fan, aren't you, really? You think he's an exciting young player. He's done so well in the Cup so far. Must be nice to have him up, Alex Ferguson, to have him up his sleeve.
Indeed, there was a point where we thought there was superstition attached to the fact that he was sort of always selected and came on and seemed to score the winning goal or make it or do something on the way up to Wembley. But it's more than that. I mean, the goal that he scored when the ball against Forest, when the ball bounced awkwardly, and he suddenly changed his whole attitude. We're going to play it with his feet, and suddenly he's seen the chance to nod it into the net. I mean, that was the mark of a great goal scorer, and that's the strength of their side, that he is a substitute for me.
Okay, well, let's meet one or two of the other personalities here for this Cup final today with Barry Davis.
Here's a man who's used to making headlines. Roy Hard, there's an early plug for you.
Yes, it certainly is. Yeah, marvellous of it. It's the only time in 14 years I've missed the news headlines on radio too. So that's my loyalty to the Palace.
Are they going to win?
I'm sure we're going to win, sir. 44 years I've been waiting for this, you know. Standing at the Holmesdale Road end, the old wind round the Marble Arch, everything. Marvellous. The greatest day of my life.
I didn't realise you were such a fan.
Oh, not half, kid, not half. Been there, going there for years, you know.
Come on then, give us a few names you remember over the years.
Well, I'll tell you my favourite name of all time. I'll tell you how much a fan I was. When I was a kid, I used to get tuppence a week pocket money, and I always used to go to a newsagent shop owned by Peter Simpson, who was a forward for us when my grandfather was alive. And I just used to go and spend my tuppence in there just for the mere fact that he might touch my hand as he passed over the licorice wood.
You've got all the gear, the blazer, the tie.
So, yeah, look at that. Got to do our best, don't we, Barry?
Well, do you enjoy the match, or do you be worried about it?
I should be worried to death, really, but, you know, it's a marvellous day out for all of us who supported the team all these years. Marvellous day out for us, and we're going to love the day, whatever happens.
Now, down in the dressing room, Stevie Coppell might a little later want something to lift the boys. Give them a good line.
Well, what he's got to do is, all he's got to do is play like they did at Wimbledon